Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Sisters Speak. Today we are doing a pre-record, so you can text in, but it won't be live. And before we begin, I'm just going to say who's on the show today. It's me, Sonia.
Me, Farin.
And me, Maryam.
Thank you guys. And who would like to say what our show is about?
So our show is a platform for Muslim girls to voice their own opinions on current events and issues and even form discussions on general topics such as religion, culture, politics. Please note all opinions and views are our own and we respect all other opposing views.
Thank you. And Maryam, would you like to say how people can get in touch with us?
So if you want to get in touch, you can message us on our Instagram page at Sisters Speak. We are also on Twitter, sisterspeak_FM. And we are also on Facebook and Inspire FM when we do our live shows.
Thank you. Okay, so let's just jump straight into our thought of the week. And Farin, would you like to go first with your thought of the week?
Yes. So my thought of the week this week is I think we should normalize ending friendships. I don't know why it's such a big thing, and I think the more I'm kind of maturing, the more I'm growing up, I feel like it's such a normal thing for me, because obviously you're friends with someone. It doesn't matter, I feel like, if you're friends with someone for 5 years, 7 years, and you obviously grow during that time, you have other interests, I don't know, you mature, or just no friendship dynamic, no, friendship chemistry. So I think that ending that friendship is, you don't have to end on like bad blood, but I think being civil, giving respect to each other and stuff like that is fine. But ending that friendship and being like, okay, I don't want to make the effort anymore because there's nothing in that friendship. You know what I mean? So I think we should normalize it. And I think that everyone around you and everyone around is going to be like, why are you not friends with this girl anymore? Why are you not friends with that anymore? But it should not be something that you should, I don't know, be really upset about, because it is something that is really normal. So that's my thought of the week.
I love the term she used, which was friendship chemistry, which is so real. But at the same time, I think, how do you do it in amicable terms? Because I think if you actually say to someone, I don't want to be mates with you, all right, they're going to be a bit offended because they'll think, well, what's so bad about my character that you don't want to be my friend? So, but I agree with you. I do think that there comes a time where friendships naturally just kind of come apart, or you're going in different directions. So how do you make sure that it's,
I don't think you should actually say it, but I feel like from my side, if I feel like the chemistry is going down, then I feel like from the other side is the same thing. Yeah. So you just kind of start drifting apart.
Yeah. I think from my experience, I think having a conversation is a way to do it. And I think that does come with maturity as well. I think to have honest conversations, because if you are friends with someone, surely you should be able to have that space to speak comfortably. And I, like Sonia said, it doesn't need to be on bad terms. It can definitely be on, we don't align anymore, we're not growing in the same spaces anymore. I think we should just part in good terms. And I think one of the things that makes it quite difficult, again, is that pressure and people around you, because people will say, oh, you did have really good friendship. Mm-hmm. But I feel like as you grow older, especially after university, no one really actually says that to you. And if they are, you might just reconsider, okay, what is the purpose of that question? Like, what's the objective? And if you even ask that person, I don't think they'll ever ask that question ever again. Yeah. So I think what it is about knowing yourself. And I speak a lot about introspection. I think knowing where you're heading, and it's okay to kind of outgrow people, because you are evolving yourself and you need to be around people that inspire you, people that make you a better person. And I definitely have experienced that. When I was in university, I was around people that I thought were very good people. But when it came to certain situations that questioned your morality, that's when I recognized, okay, these people are completely... It's almost a dichotomy between what is actually right and what is wrong. And I was actually really upset about it, because I thought I spent so much time investing in these relationships. I sort of was kind of blinded in terms of I saw them in a way that I wanted to see. And I think that's a really valid point, because we tend to kind of we're quite forgiving for the people around us because we love them. But actually, if they are actually consistently making you uncomfortable, you really need to question why you're putting yourself in that space. I think for me personally, I was actually reflecting on this last week, that I met the best people after university. Like, I genuinely met the best relationships. I made people that are doing incredible work, people who are really striving for positive impact, people who are just genuinely good people. So I do think that it's about knowing yourself and where you stand. And, I had a friend as well that who used to like withdraw from time to time because of her mental health, but that used to make me feel unstable. And I tried to have an honest conversation, and she completely there was no response from her And so for that instance, I completely removed her because I already expressed on multiple occasions that it makes me unstable. And it's not because, I'm not saying that, you know, because of your mental health issue, that should be a reason, but it's not going to work between us because we both have different struggles, and together, it's not a viable relationship. She doesn't speak to me at all. And I do think about it, and I do make dua for her and stuff. But I just feel like after I've cut all these people off, only then Allah started to put really incredible people in my life. Like, I feel like the people I'm surrounded, the caliber that they have, the passion that they have, the akhlaq, the character, is something that I genuinely feel Allah has put me among these people, is because I was someone that exercised introspection, and I proactively tried to, you know, look for people who have a moral standing. So I definitely think it's about knowing yourself first, then you can make, you know, positive relationship.
I think what you mentioned between a friend who made you feel unstable, I think that's fair enough, because you'd rather be separate than stay and then have toxicity and bad negative feelings towards each other. Like, if you're away from each other, then you can't affect each other anymore, and it's not worth holding on to what little bit of friendship you might have had. So yeah, I think that's really good, and I can say I've had positive experiences of me and friends naturally drifting apart, and like you said, that just an end of a friendship, and it's not necessarily like sad or anything like that. It's like, okay, we're going through different paths. Like, if I see you, you know, we're still all good, but we're just not in the same wavelength anymore. But yeah, normalize ending friendships. That's such a good thought of the week.
I think it links a lot to the fear of being by yourself, and especially my first year when I went to sixth form, I just felt the need that I need to have friends, because if people see me on my break by myself, they're gonna be like, why is she by herself? But now that I'm in my second year of sixth form, you know, you go so much and you mature, and I spend most of my breaks time by myself, and it's so nice, you know. You are, obviously because I have exams as well, but I think that first you need to be in a group, and you know it's not working out, you know, there's no, like I said, friendship chemistry there, but you're still gonna be with them physically, just to not be by yourself. And I think we should normalize being by yourself.
Strength in numbers, so I kind of see where you're coming from. And school is a whole other thing, because, you know, it's like it can be like a jungle there and you need support. But yeah,
what do you guys think about the impact of social media? Because I feel like that's something that was quite difficult for me, in terms of people that you used to follow at university, and I don't know, I felt really stressed in terms of unfollowing people in social. I literally made my social media because I was doing student elections, and I felt like these people supported me when I didn't even know them, and but I don't want them to watch my life anymore. I don't have any connection. I don't even speak to them.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the role of social media into dissolving relationships or just even drifting apart?
I think if someone's making you uncomfortable, you don't want them to see your life, and you've grown apart, like you said, after so many years. I think it should be normalized again from following people, not having them on your social media. If you, for like, I don't know, 3 years, you were there, but you were not really there, you made me feel uncomfortable, our friendship was not stable, then why would I want to keep looking at your stuff after, you know? So I think unfollowing and social media it should be as normal as well.
But I do get where you're coming from, Maryam, because there was a time when unfriending someone or unfollowing someone was huge.
A scandal.
It was a scandal. Like, I remember even on like even the lesser platforms, it was like you had to have these people because you saw them. And it's like, actually, no, why would you need to have them? This is your personal life. It's your personal platform. You can do whatever you like with it. But I do remember that pressure. Then you have a day when you just feel empowered and you're like, no, I'm deleting everyone. I don't care. And then you have your actual people that you want to share it with. Mm-hmm. But now I think it's actually okay, because we've really settled into it now, like 10 plus years of social media. Like, people's very like, no, it's normal. Like, have your platforms for your close people. Have maybe your networking platforms where you share with everyone. So there's a variety now, whereas before you felt like you had to have everyone on everything, but now it's come to a point, I think, where you can pick and choose. Yeah. So thank you so much for your thought of the week, Farin.
That's okay.
Very insightful. I think it got us all talking. Next, Maryam, your thought of the week, please.
Yeah, I feel like I already shared my thought of the week in terms of Farin. I think my own personal reflection, I've been really thinking about how Allah has really favoured me in terms of good company, and I feel like that is our growth, because I recognise I was someone at university, and perhaps me even before that, I was quite a people pleaser, and I had to do a lot of work to kind of address that. I even went to therapy to address these kind of concerns, because a lot of it is because you've had certain experiences that has shaped you, and I think that once I had exercised this introspection, and once I realised that I don't see myself as this person who wants to always be around people who make me uncomfortable, but I tend to kind of appeal to that, there's a problem there. So alhamdulillah, like, since after university, and I have like removed all these people. I've really been proactive, and it took me a while, and I think that's something that should be considered. It took me time. It's not something that happened overnight. It took me around a year or two to adjust to that kind of notion that you don't have to be connected to everyone. Really and truly now, I have seen the benefits of that. I think my life has transformed to a degree that I can't even describe. I'm around people that really inspire me, that are really doing great work, and I have great friends like Farin and Sonia who are with me, standing with me, and we're doing I really enjoy Sister Speak as well. So I think overall my kind of thought of the week is that let yourself evolve, make sure you have introspection, and good company is something that can bring a beacon of light.
Yeah, I think the important thing to know is that it takes time, like you said, like a year or two, and you're just thinking about what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. So it does take time. You can't like obviously suffer in one day.
And I didn't meet these friends. Like I wouldn't say like in just one area. Like I would dip by, I've got a bit of a fleece, so that's probably why I take it a bit long to articulate myself.
Take your time.
As I was saying, is that I didn't meet them in one area. I've put myself in very uncomfortable situations because I'm quite of an introvert. So I did a lot of things during the year that I was actually finding myself, and I explored lots of different options. So I was in like in a group that did advocacy. I'm now in the tech space, which is really interesting, and that's completely out of my area of expertise because I do a lot of advocacy and I actually work in policy. And I think when you meet people that are like in different sectors, it really makes you have really good conversations and you learn a lot. So I think don't limit yourself to your own interests. Try to explore other things as well. You'll actually meet a variety of people with a variety of perspectives, and that really makes you grow as a person. I think that really accelerated my friendships in terms of having good company, but also accelerated my being open-minded.
Wow, thank you, Maryam. I think it's amazing the way you put yourself into situations that you know you're going to feel uncomfortable or you know nothing about, but you still take that step forward to do that. So well done for doing that. I think we can all learn from that. But yeah, thank you for the thought of the week.
Sonia, what's your thought of the week now?
Oh, okay. So basically, I have this quote that we put up at work. So at work, we have this new thing, guys. Look. Thought of the week.
We should put it in the camera, show them.
Yeah, well, let's see if you can get it. Okay, so we do this at work too. So the work thought of the week, I'm going to read it out. Remember that self-love is essential and never forget to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you offer to others. And so my boss wrote dash his name, but he didn't invent that quote. But anyway, I've picked that because I feel like a lot of the times, and I'm guilty of it, we're all guilty of it, you just do everything you can for someone else. You go above and beyond, you break your neck, you break your back, you do everything for them. Because hospitality is in our nature, maybe. Or you just feel like, oh, I should be understanding towards them, or I don't want anyone else to feel uncomfortable. But you don't do it for yourself quite often. Well, I personally don't do it for myself. I think even little things like knowing that you don't want to go out, like, do you know what, I'm going to offer that kindness to myself. Like, I do not want to go out, I'm not going to force myself to go out. Or things like spending a lot of money on an item. I mean, have you guys ever felt like you can't spend it on yourself, but you can spend it on someone else, right? I don't know why that is the case. We just don't offer the same kindness and treatment to ourselves that we do to others a lot. So yeah, I think that like when you're buying a gift again for someone, you don't really hesitate. But when it's for yourself, you're like, should I? Do I really need it? And so on. It's like, just do it. Offer that kindness and treatment to yourself. So yeah, that was my thought of the week, just to have that self-love, but actually be a bit proactive in it. Because we say it, but then when it comes to real situations, you just don't do it. You'll do it for someone else, but not for yourself. So yeah, that's my thought of the week. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
I think it's very true. And I think when we start doing things for ourselves, imagine, I don't know, you got paid or something and you spend it on a bag that you really want, then you're called selfish. Oh, why do you spend your money on this? Why do you spend your money that? So I think we get pressure from so many people as well to actually kind of do. So when we do it, so do it for other people and not for yourself. And that's why we kind of do it like that.
I think there should be a balance. I think, whilst we're at service to other people, we do have to take care of ourselves because, as they say, that analogy, you can't pour if you're an empty cup. So you have to really take care of yourself, and you know what your boundaries are, and you know that if you don't make yourself happy and you don't take care of yourself and you don't take care of your mental health and your well-being, then essentially how are you going to be at service of others? And it's in our fitra, it's in our nature to be able to be at service of Allah and others. So I think definitely I resonate with that, because I feel like once I started to be more kinder to myself, I think I was able to have a lot more barakah in my life, because I allowed things to be more fluid. And then, it just made me a much more of a happier person. And I think that also reflected my character, because a lot of bitterness I maybe harbored when I was in university just completely dissolved.
Good, yeah.
So I think it's when you really do take care of yourself, and I think that's the essence of valuing yourself as well, because sometimes we do feel like we have to submit to other people's expectations, and that's something that spirals out of control. And I think it's a lot of it it could be intergenerational, because I think our parents have that same notion because their parents expected of that, and so that's something that's transcended. However, we need to be the ones that are proactive and kind of distinguish between when we should be able to give ourselves and when we shouldn't, and that is it's a sign of emotional intelligence, which is a huge component of our faith as well. Because you have to think about the Prophet ﷺ. When you study the seerah, you can see that it wasn't that when the Prophet used to give himself, he would be able to do it in so many different capacities, but he knew when he was upset, and he knew that when there was boundaries, and he took those steps, and we can take learnings from that.
Yeah, thank you so much. But yeah, I agree. I think you are much happier as a person and more fulfilled when you take care of yourself, rather than always just looking on the outside and everyone else's opinions and so on. So yeah, thank you for that, Maryam. I think we are done with the thought of the week. This week we won't have a hot topic. Instead, we're going to go straight into our main topic, which is about competition culture in our cultures, right?
Yeah.
Right. Farin chose it, everyone. So competition culture refers to a culture or environment that emphasizes competition and winning at all costs. This can be seen in a variety of contexts, such as sports, business, or education, where individuals or groups are often pitted against each other in order to achieve success. Before I go into it, I'm just going to ask Farin a little bit about what it is and why you picked this topic.
So I picked competition culture because I think it's something that's so ingrained in everything that we do. And I think that it normally comes from outside people. And I think on social media, you see we're always, competing against each other to have the best this, the best that. And it really affects us. And maybe it's like you said, we have to reach everyone's expectations. But if I don't feel comfortable doing that, then why should I be competing? And I think it comes a lot as well from our culture. And I think it's really normal for us to be competing against each other. So it's like when you say, oh, you have to be a doctor, engineer, blah, blah, blah. And from our culture, it's really like normalized. And from our parents, for example, they don't like say it that you have to compete, but they kind of, in a passive aggressive way, they kind of like, okay, you have to do this, you have to do that. So I think that's why competition culture it has its advantages and disadvantages, which we are going to get into in our second half. But I think it affects us and our mental health. So I think that's where it's really important to talk about.
I think on the point where our parents indirectly say that, I think a lot of it stems from their lack of security. Yeah. They came to this country where they had zero wealth, with zero support. They had a language barrier. And so when they have these notions that we have to go into a certain career, it's because they don't want us to experience what they did in terms of struggles. And that's the only thing they understand in terms of stability. So I think that stems from that. But also, like, again, as I mentioned before, it could be a lot of intergenerational notions that are transcended between parents and the young people. In terms of stemming from our culture, I think it's a societal symptom of how everyone is very individualistic. Everyone always talks about how do I achieve the best, and my definition of success is when I'm above everyone else. But that's something that's completely against our religion, and we think as a collective, how do we as a community help each other? How do we be in service of each other, of others? And it's not necessarily just for Muslims. Allah says in the Quran, it's about brothers and sisters. That does not define religions, right? It's literally everyone. It's encompassing of that. Whoever is your neighbor, whoever's you work with, everyone around you has a right over you, and you should be able to serve them. And that's where our intentions are premised upon. So I think sometimes we, especially in the culture that we kind of navigate through, so especially in education, everyone finds out, okay, what what grade did you get? And actually, in some countries, they actually have a league table, who's the topper, which I actually think is so problematic because that's not indicative of someone's worth. And even people refer them to, I'm a topper. I actually find that really strange, but I think that's a point
So
towards.
is that in schools or
Yeah,
like
it's
families?
schools. In schools, like they have a league table. Okay, who's gonna? I think a lot of South Asian countries have it. They have a league table. Who's the topper? Who's got the best marks? And everyone sees that names list. So I think, and that kind of manifests in different ways as well in the UK as well, because you have Russell Group University, you don't have Russell Group University, and of course Russell Group's universities about institutionally how much research they have. In terms of the caliber of the lectures, but again, like it's pitted against people who don't go to a Russell Group University in terms of job opportunities, and that might not be factoring in that this person that who probably comes from a low socio-economic background was unable to go to a Russell Group University just because the education that they were exposed to was poor because they come from an area that has low attainment. So there's just so many factors I think that have a role into this culture, but I definitely think that we have to kind of renew and reconfigure our intentions and what we want to achieve. And I think the expectation Allah has of us is that we just have to be the best people that we can be in our capacity, and we just have to be people of service. And I think that is quite comforting personally for me to know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think in our generation is going to be kind of... we are all like normalizing this, and we're kind of we don't have to be top grade, we don't have to go to Russell Group University, but before everything was kind of a competition, and it's not bad to have competition sometimes, but I think that your only goal being winning and being the best is not something that you should aim for all the time.
Yeah, and I feel like on social media a lot of people have said, like, who have reached these milestones, they don't know what to do next. After they've pitted their whole career to achieve this one milestone, they become depressed because they don't have any other purpose. But alhamdulillah, like, we're grounded, we have a purpose, we know that this is not we believe this life is just temporary and the akhirah is what we're looking towards. So I do think that it's kind of embodying and the perspectives that we have in our religion that really does comfort us and give us that reassurance that we don't have to be in this competition culture primarily, because again we believe that we're slaves of Allah, so we're not enslaved by this kind of notion.
Yeah, I think in the second half we'll go into that a little bit more. But yeah, we've still got some time in the first half, and I think we should just touch on where we think it kind of comes from in our... I know you did say that, and it was a good point. You mentioned that it's our generations above us may have come from instability or no wealth and so on, so that kind of makes them want to push us even further. And Maryam, you made so many good points. I feel like picking out all of them. Then you mentioned in other countries they have like league tables and so on, which again there can be positives to that as well, I think, in competition culture. But really I just want to know with you two yourselves, how do you think the competition culture, first of all, do you think it exists in your kind of field and circles, and then also if it does, how does it affect you? Farin, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I think it does have, you know how this if I don't know, some of my mom's friends, they have a daughter my age, then we're gonna be like, oh, what does she have, what do I have, and there's the whole thing of why you're not doing what she's doing, and it's like, I don't want to do it, and it really affects us mental health, and it affects us because if I don't reach that goal that my mom wants me to reach, for example, then it does it makes me feel like I'm not enough. But I think competition, like you said, from the league table, the topper is gonna be so happy, but then everyone's gonna see who's the what do you call the lowest ranking, the lowest one, and it just, everyone's gonna know that you got the lowest ranking, but why does everyone have to know? So I think, yeah.
So you do definitely see it happening in your circles.
Yeah, I definitely think it happens in education, and I think even the place that I work, I feel like everyone kind of attributes you to the range of your pay grade, and I actually find that very shocking because I'm quite new to this area, but I just think, how does my pay grade indicate my caliber? It's very strange, and it's not, I don't think the intention is to show a caliber, but it just shows you're in this sect and you're in this position, and so maybe stay in your lane properly. But I actually find a very weird culture. Like, why are we referring to each other by our pay grades?
Wow, you're right. It's like a form of segregation in a way as well, or just a way to define people, and not necessarily
in terms of the hierarchy, in terms of the position. It's strange, and I think and at the same time we have these hierarchies obviously in place for the function of operationally in terms of spaces of work, but I think intrinsically, when it becomes definitive of like what your caliber is, I don't think that's positive. But it stems from education. Education is it's a huge competition culture. If you don't get the A, you're not going to get into a good university. If you don't get the B, and if you got a C, you're not even looked at, right? Like, especially people who, for example, when you go to university, no one celebrates that they got a 2-2 because that's seen something really bad. But if someone worked so hard to get into university,
you got a degree, right?
You got a degree, and not everyone gets a degree. But no one will ever mention that they've got a 2-2. I never see it. Like, it's very rare that people put that on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is another platform that really showcases this competition culture. It's always, I'm so pleased to achieve this, but no one tells I've been struggling for the last 2 years to get this.
I've got a friend who hopefully will be coming to our radio show soon, and she actually says that LinkedIn is bad for her mental health. Like, she says, I don't like to go on it because it just starts me off on a downward spiral almost, because of the competition culture that people put on like a thin veil of trying to be like, celebrate achievements and be polite, but really it can be very harmful to others.
Definitely.
We've just got 30 seconds left of the first half, so thank you guys both for your points. We'll just wrap it up into talking about competition culture. We'll go more into it into the second half of the show, talking about how it can bring unity, it can be healthy competition. So there are some positives as well, and we can learn a lot of things from looking at others as well. So it's not always, oh, look at them, look at you. It can sometimes be inspiring and inspirational. We'll go through that in the second half. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the second half of the podcast. I am now hosting. So the first half we talked about what competition culture is, and we talked about the disadvantages, but I think we will just touch upon and explore how it can be positive, but we will actually explore other aspects of it too. So my first question actually, Farin, is what advantages do you think it has?
I think there's more disadvantages to competition, I'm not going to lie. But advantages is it kind of motivates you. So if I see, for example, my friend, she's doing really good and I'm happy for her that she's doing really good, but I know I have the capability to do it as well and I have the resources to do it, then it's going to motivate me to, okay, I want to do it as well. And I think your friend, if she's doing it, then she should be happy for you, And I think it's a big thing. It's a really great motivational, what do you say, motivational, like
it prompts you to
do it. It prompts you to work hard for it and be like, okay, I'm doing it now as well. So I think that's a really good advantage of competition.
I think for me personally, like before when I was a bit younger, I would see it as competition culture, but now the people, alhamdulillah, that I'm surrounded with, they're doing incredible work. Even recently, which I will talk in the live show next week, I went to the Muslim Tech Fest by Muslimic makers. And the people that were surrounding me, they are people of my age and that doing startups. They've organised an event where the first time ever in history in the Royal Institution of Science, 400 Muslims came, and they organised that, and they are around my age as well. And I don't see that as a competition. I think for me that is something to aspire to. So I think your definition of a competition kind of evolves as you grow older, because you see that, okay, I've got so much to aspire to, I've got so much to learn from. And I think the more you learn, the more humbled you become, because you realise that there's so much you don't know as opposed to how much you do know. So I think in a way that the competition culture definition kind of dissolves as you grow older, because you don't see it as something that's pitted against you. You see it as a learning opportunity. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think definitely. And I think, for example, how, like you said, they're doing so many great things. And I think the important thing is to be humble when you're doing like these big things. And if someone wants to learn about it, or if someone wants to be involved in it and just do some little volunteering, then they should be open to do it, because you're motivating me to do this. And it's not a competition that I'm going to go and I'm going to, take your place. It's something that I want to learn and I want to be there supporting you, because like you said, what was it? A Muslim
Islamic, Tech Fest.
A Tech Fest. See, that's why and we can be involved in it. We can do it, and it's such a great learning tool for us, like you said.
Yeah. So, I'm not in the area of tech, but I was able to take benefit. I was the beneficiary of this entire fest, and I think what you mentioned is really true, because it doesn't matter what area you're working in. It's about how much you can learn. I think a question that I do want to ask though, what's the impact of mental health? Because of course, when you are watching other people doing other great work, sometimes it is quite inevitable. You do feel a bit that you're not actually on par with them. And so what role does the mental health have in that?
I think first it's really important to understand that if you are achieving something, it's because you did it because you had you first had the resources or you had the skills to do it, and we're different people. So what you achieved is some I can achieve something else just as good, but it has a really big impact on mental health. I went to a time in my life where, like we mentioned before, people pleasing, and I was doing stuff that I really didn't want to do, but I was just doing because all my friends were doing it, for example. And it really did have I was like, I didn't know myself. I was like, who am I? Why am I doing this for no reason? And it was like a good 2 years. And obviously I don't know on your level that you're doing with other people that are achieving so many good things, like the Royal Institute of Science. Mine is just sixth form high school stuff, but it still did have a big impact on my mental health when you're growing up and you feel so I feel like competition culture, you feel that it's there, but it's not actually. You can't physically see it, but you can see that we're kind of pitted against each other, but nobody actually says it. So I think in the mental health, it makes you feel like a failure, and I think it's a big thing. And I think we always promise to be successful in everything we do, but it's not necessarily. And I think failing is such a good, healthy thing to go through, and it really is like a really good learning tool as well.
You mentioned so many brilliant points, and I think I'm going to unpack a lot of them. I think one of the things that you mentioned is about in terms of resources. I think a lot of people don't recognize that not everyone has the same resources as each other, and that's something that's not factored in. And we mentioned in the first half about LinkedIn. I remember the time I was applying for roles where I had experiences I had the job description in terms of what they required. I had the experience for it. However, I was not getting the job. And then I would see my own connections get that role, and I would think, what differentiates me and that person since we have similar experiences? But again, it's about resources as well. Like, do I have exposure to that company? And a lot of the time people don't realize it's more about who you know rather than what you know. Yeah. And I've benefited a lot from that, because once I understood this concept, that's why I've been so proactive in meeting other different kind of groups, because that inevitably helped my exposure. Another thing that you mentioned was about how when you think about the disadvantages of this competition culture, you don't tend to think about how you're feeling at that moment. I think emotions is something that's really important and significant to talk about, because if you are feeling if you feel like you have a lack of value, it's going to affect the way you kind of produce work, and it's inevitably going to actually make you go even more down, which again is a spiral. So I think being present with your emotions is really important, and I think having good company is actually a solution as well, a part of the solution, because when you have friends that are really supportive of you and they recognize your circumstances, they recognize who you are, and they know that you've got potential, they will support you irrespective of where you are. And I think it's something that you can't do alone. You actually need a good company to support you. Like how you mentioned, like, I'm in a very different space to you because I've experienced so many different things. Whereas I genuinely think that you're very inspiring, and a lot of people don't know that Farin actually moved from Spain 3 years ago, and she's speaking on a radio show, and she's speaking perfectly well, alhamdulillah, like with the ability to articulate herself. I myself, when I started this radio show, as a native speaker, as someone that can speak English, I really struggled because I was such an introvert, but I was so anxious on how I would perform and how I speak, and I think it took a very long time for me to evolve. So I do feel like we should really focus on the journey, and in a sense that competition culture only exposes the surface level. It never shows you what's behind the scenes. It never shows you how much people have struggled. And I think LinkedIn, again, is one of those platforms that really perpetuates this idea that you have to have certain milestones and set a time trajectory.
Yeah, I think when, how I was saying, like, I don't know who I am, I don't know what I'm doing, I think everyone around me was feeling the same way, but nobody actually says it. And it's like you said, it's always on the surface level. You see that she's doing this, she's being very happy, she's achieving this, I want to do this as well. But we're both going to I want to do better than you want to do better than me. And it's just this whole pitting against each other thing, but we're actually, none of us actually want to do that. It all comes down to surface level. We're all feeling the same way about this.
Do you think there's a lack of communication between us? because of this?
I think there is, I think sometimes with friendships and everything, it's just such a big thing in gatekeeping. Do you know what it means, gatekeeping? So when you start, for example, just about, yeah. Gatekeeping is when you, for example, imagine I'm going through a really interesting fest or something, and I don't want to tell Maryam because I know she's going to go and she's going to make a lot of friends. So I'm gatekeeping that kind of fest from her because I don't want her to be there. I don't want her to network more than me. So I think gatekeeping is such a bad thing, and I don't think you should do it. And I think with friends, for example, if I had the opportunity to, I don't know, bring all my friends to this radio show, I would. And I think gatekeeping stuff that it's such a learning tool for everyone, I think is really bad. And you should always aim to, so if I achieve something, for example, I'm on this radio show, then all I want to do is I want to tell people I'm on the radio show, and you can come as well. You can tell us what your thoughts are, for example, on Instagram, on Sister Speak. So
follow us.
For example, like you do, Maryam sends me so many like internships, so many opportunities, and she doesn't gatekeep them because she knows, for example, I have potential and I can do it. So there's no competition. If I get an opportunity, I send it to my friends. I'm like, you can do this as well. You can apply. And if you get it, then it's good for you. You have the skills. You have the potential to do it. They accepted you. You have the role. I'm happy for you because I did it. So I think it comes down also to, I think, a bit of jealousy of competition and everything. So my main thing would be to not gatekeep all these opportunities and to send them to everyone.
And exactly so. And even if you make ease for someone else, Allah says He will make ease for you, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So you have to be of service. And I think it is pointed towards your own character as well, but also company. Because there was a time where I was friends with someone who was gatekeeping things, and I would share things with them, but they wouldn't with me, and they were only later on. And I thought, but we're in the same boat. Why aren't you sharing things? So I really think a lot of my personal experiences has shaped the person I am today through my friendships, because I think maybe because I was such an empty cup, and I was a people pleaser, perhaps the influence was greater on me. Not everyone's the same. But yeah, on the point of sharing experiences and opportunities, I'm definitely someone that I always send you opportunities even if I don't know you, because if I think it's relevant. I'm sorry for anyone that has experienced that. Like, don't message me. You just blocked me. Because I genuinely think like we're supposed to be together. We're supposed to be collectively thriving. That we've come as a community in Britain to be able to have access to certain things, and if we see something's relevant to a certain person, it is the onus on us to share it with them. Because again, qadr Allah, right? We don't know if that person's going to get it, but you should send khair.
You did your part. You got the opportunity. You know they're going to do it.
Exactly.
And you sent it.
And I think, you want to see everyone become, the best people that they could be. And I genuinely think if we want to be a strong community, then we need to be able to get positions. But we have to help. We have to put our hands down and help each other go up. That's the only way we can do it. And I think one of the struggles I have actually seen now is that when you're going through this process of trying to get higher roles, there is that question of how much are you compromising your values. And it's something that I've been grappling a lot as well in terms of competition culture, because you do think, okay, for example, this is something that's questioning my morality. How much am I willing to kind of compromise it? And I've actually experienced this in one of my jobs where I was expected to order alcohol, and as someone who doesn't drink because I'm a Muslim, and I just wasn't comfortable with the idea of that I have to order this alcohol and be a reason of where other people are going to drink alcohol. Because of me, I'll be the means.
Yeah.
And because of the competition culture within that place, that space, I just thought this is going to hinder my career. If I resist, it's going to see as someone that's not proactive, right? I took this project on. But I had that honest conversation. It was very uncomfortable, but I had that conversation. And actually, this person was very receptive to understanding that this is my values. Because I think when you show yourself that you're someone that really cares about your religion and everything that it encompasses, I think people respect you a lot, but you shouldn't obviously be driven by that respect. You should be realizing that the risk that you will get is from Allah, and whether you have that choice or not, you have to be able to articulate that. So I think competition culture also can become a conflicting thing with your values. And as you see Muslims go in different positions, we often see that, this Muslim has said that, we need Muslims in this space, and that's why I compromised. But actually, how much value are you going to be adding if you are compromising your if you're willing to compromise your values? It's not actually going to resonate with the community, right? And it's not going to be good for your iman either. So I think a lot of this should be, I think my next question is like, how do you think you would grapple with situations where you're in a space where there's competition culture, but you're morally conflicted?
I think because obviously I've not experienced as much as you, I think with my personality, and I am still a little bit of a people pleaser, I think I would still do it. And even though if it's conflicting with my moral values, I feel like they're gonna think this about me, so I have to do it. Otherwise, I don't know, I'm getting risk of, I don't know, being friends with her anymore or getting kicked out. So because of how I am right now, maybe in, I don't know, in 5 years won't be like this, and I would be so, I'm like bold and say I don't want to do this because it's conflicting, I don't know, with my beliefs. But I think right now I think it depends on actually what you're going to do. So for example, like you said, ordering these drinks, obviously I wouldn't do it either, but it depends on what actually you have
the substance,
to do.
right?
Yeah, the substance of what's actually conflicting with your moral views. But
Yeah.
I think my personality right now is a bit of a balance in people pleasing and my moral beliefs.
And of course, you'll be evolving. I think that question is not really going to capture, because obviously you don't know how you're going to be in a couple of years. But I think in the situation right now, as the present day, especially when you go to university, you will be challenged in terms of your religion. You'll be challenged in terms of your ideology and beliefs. And that's not even with you like working. It would be in terms of having discussions. There will be people that will question you. Why do you believe in a certain way? That's inevitably going to happen. That's where university is a space of discussion. How do you think you're going to navigate those discussions? Or what are your concerns? Perhaps I can give you some insight.
So for example, basically we went to uni because in UTEN we're so used to seeing, I don't know, girls with hijab, people practicing their religion. But I think when I go to uni, it's gonna be such a different thing because it's obviously in London, and I'm not gonna see people. I don't know if I'm gonna meet many Muslims. So obviously there are gonna be many Muslims, but I think there's gonna be you're a Muslim, so I have to be a better Muslim than you. I think that's kind of where conversation culture really comes in, and I'm really worried about not making friends because of it.
I think you're right in saying that there can be this space, especially in universities, where the level of your religiosity, quote unquote, which I really disagree with that term coined.
What's the term, sorry?
It's like it's how someone is really religious.
Okay.
As someone who's practicing, and what does that even mean? That's a whole different conversation. That can make you feel that you're not included in the spaces, especially when some societies, Islamic societies, they sometimes can make you feel very excluded. And that's not just my personal experience. I've known many people that said that they feel that they don't resonate with the people that are in leadership roles because they follow a certain way, and they only make you, unless you submit to that, then you're not part of that. And that's very wrong in terms of how Islam is. Islam is not like that. It should be encompassing of everyone. And when you're in a position of authority, especially in university, where you know that you have a responsibility to cater to your Muslim community, irrespective of your theological beliefs and whether that's Shia, Muslim, whatever sect you come from, the point is that you're supposed to create a space in university where Muslims can come together and they can practice their faith, and they can come together and create social spaces, because you have to offer the alternative. Otherwise, Muslims will have the exposure to things that are conflicting with their religion. So I do think that culture does exist in university, and the way to navigate that is, firstly, you have to understand yourself more. And I talk about that a lot, and I said in the first half, if you don't understand where you stand in terms of your religious beliefs, if you don't know where you stand in terms of your perspectives of life, and you will evolve in university, and I'm not saying that's the setting stone, but you should have a vague idea of where you stand in terms of your morality and your ideological beliefs. And even your ideological beliefs can diverge in terms of in Islam. That's completely fine as well, so long as it's between the Quran and Sunnah. I think if you don't have that strong sense of yourself, then it's very difficult to navigate, because you will get swayed in university, because a lot of it is cult-like. And I think the way to navigate that is to be able to meet people that are a bit like-minded initially as well, because you will kind of go through, everyone's going through it together as well. So the people I used to meet is the people in the prayer room. So people that I would consistently see at the prayer room, I made bonds with them, and you'll be able to tell, like, okay, this person is actually someone that makes me feel calm, someone that is supportive, someone has good character. And I also, the second place used to be in the library. Like I'm a very particular person, so I used to like sitting in this particular area, and I would see those other people who are particular as well, and they happen to be Muslim. So I think there's just different ways. You have to explore different things. It's kind of trial and error. But I think if you find something that there's lacking in university, you're a Muslim, and take the initiative to do it. And if you don't have the capacity or resources, then get other people to help to mitigate that gap, because you don't know that sadaqah jariyah that you will benefit from. And obviously, if you're having good intention, that Allah will make a way whether it's difficult or not, he will actually make a way. So I think that would also is a point of character building as well, because in university you are exploring yourself, and it's not to say that you will find yourself completely in university. I find myself after university, so there'll be the different elements about yourself. So yeah, in terms of that competitive culture in university, you'll feel that in many different streams, but I think it's about having good friendships. What's your thoughts on that?
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there, because I think, like you said, Islamic society, I feel like when I go and I find an Islamic society, it's supposed to be a safe space. It doesn't matter what I believe, what kind of branch I'm following. It should be just safe space for Muslims to meet other Muslim girls, to kind of have like a sorority, you know, in American universities and stuff. So I think going there and actually, I'm going to feel a bit... okay, so she's following this, so I have to follow it as well. So I think that's where the competition culture comes. And I think that's what I'm going to be worried about. They're going to be like, why are you doing this when you're supposed to do this?
If someone actually does say that to you, I think healthy discussions are fine. But then but you have to remember the crux of it is that we are not knowledgeable enough to be able to articulate these theological debates, and that might actually prompt you to actually learn more about your ideologies. So for me, after I went university, I started to study under a teacher, because there was discussions at university that I wasn't capable of answering, and actually if I'm not capable of understanding my own values, then there's a problem. I need to understand why I'm believing the certain things. So for the school of fiqh that I study, like I follow the Hanafi madhab, I wanted to learn more about it. And I think that being humble about it as well, like I don't have the capacity or the knowledge to answer this question. And I respectfully allow you to, not allow, but you respect to have your views, and we can part respectfully, right? I think a lot of the time people think they feel the need to defend what their beliefs are.
Without having enough knowledge about it.
Yeah, without having knowledge about it. And it's humbling to say that I do believe this, but I'm not very knowledgeable. And I think that's a good way of me to learn that I need to actually be proactive in learning why I believe certain things. But I do want to give a caveat. I do feel like I've scared you. Not all Islamic societies are like this. I'm sure there's some good ones as well. But I think it's just having that awareness, because a lot of people do get that shock that why is it like this? But again, if people are making uncomfortable, then you just kind of withdraw. Like Islam is so fluid, and it's supposed to be a space of community, a space where people can come together. And if someone's making you feel that you are following the wrong thing, and especially if they don't do it in an un-Islamic way, then that's completely conflicting to what Islamic societies are supposed to represent.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think it really boils down to understanding yourself, like where do you stand, and remember, like people are a accumulation of their own experiences. So if you went through the same experience, perhaps you would react to the same way. I think that's quite something that you learn over time. But again, as I mentioned a million times, you have to have introspection. Yeah. You have to recognize yourself.
Depends on everyone's individual experience. I just want to touch, so you know how you say you don't have enough knowledge to talk about it? I think it's such a big thing when you don't know something that's supposed to be common knowledge, and everyone's like, why do you not know about this? I don't know about it, so I'm not going to answer it. And I think it happens to me so many times when they ask me something and I don't know the answer. I'm just going to say, I don't know it. But I feel embarrassed to say, so I just say whatever comes to my mind, and everyone around me is judging you like, how do you not know this as basic common knowledge? Maybe I lack a bit of common sense, but I think that
I don't think you lack any common sense.
I think that not knowing the answer to a question is literally so normal, and it's human.
It's human nature, of course. And like I think the people around you, maybe they lack the capacity to understand that. As I said before in the show, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, and it humbles you so much. And even with me, there's just so much things that I didn't know about our religion, and I have to go refresh it as well. Like I studied the course of Seerah, and I feel like if someone asked me specific details, I would say, I'm sorry, I don't know, even though I studied it. So I feel like that's a problem with myself. I kind of find it difficult to retain knowledge. But then again, I'm going to do a refresher course, inshallah. So I think meeting people that understand that you're evolving, you're growing, and you're only a very young age.
Yeah.
You have to remember you're very young, and even despite it doesn't matter what age you are actually, because we are students of knowledge until we die. Like we're always going to learn. Our capacity to learn is always going to be there. Even the way our religion was revealed is that we have to study, we have to be inquisitive, we have to learn. To be able to, I disagree with people that, especially who quote unquote call themselves influencers, who are just ready to debate but not ready to listen. That is not part of the sunnah. You're supposed to be understanding the hearing and having good communication skills and being emotionally intelligent. And if you're portraying Islam in an Islamic way, then how much substance are you really saying, right? So I think in that sense, it's something that we have to acknowledge and we have to be able to navigate. But we are coming sort of the end of the show. But there's one question I do want to ask. I think we've kind of covered a lot of points in terms of competition culture, the advantages of it in terms of it does encourage and prompt people to work a bit harder. But I think one of the things that you touched upon was about failure and how that's a lesson learned that you can take forward. Just want you to kind of elaborate on that as we close the show.
Yeah, so I think failure is in our culture. I mean, I don't want to say generally. I think maybe in some points of our lives, it is something that it's seen as really bad. But I think failure is so healthy, and it should be something that we don't aim for failure. But if it happens, then it happens. It's life. It's human. It's natural. So, for example, when I failed, I don't know, my driving test, the first time, I didn't want to tell anyone because I felt like such a failure. And in my kind of how do you say, my like circle of friends, and everyone was like, you have to pass first time, you have to pass first time. You don't have to pass first time. You can fail that first test and then you can pass the second one. So that's the whole thing, that failure is not something that you don't have to aim for failure, but when it happens, I think everyone around you, that's when I feel like you really see where your real people, friends are, because when you fail something and they kind of supporting you that, okay, you failed but you can't do it, then that's where you see the real people. And I think embracing failure is so important. And when you're younger, I feel like it's really unknown to you, failure. No, you have to succeed in everything that you do. But as you grow, you see, I failed in so many things since I've grown out, that I have to succeed stage. So we should embrace failure, support everyone who has gone through failure, and know that we can all succeed.
Very, very a good way to kind of end the show. I think on that point, in terms of success, I think failure is success, because then now you have hindsight that you don't repeat that same thing
That's
again.
True.
You learn how to navigate a new area of space, and something that I feel only with time you kind of evolve. And again, it goes back to good company, right? If you had good company, they will encourage you. It's okay. Like, this wasn't in your decree to pass first time, and there's knowledge that you don't know. Like, Allah's seeing it. He has all knowledge, and you will pass the next time. Or even if you don't pass the next time, there will be the right time for you, because we don't know when the right time is for us. So, like, as we round off the show, I think kind of the main points we're talking about is that competition culture, I think, is something that's very individualistic. But if it does prompt you to work hard, then that's really positive. And in terms of success and failure, I think it's all about learning and evolving and growing. I think these are the things that are big indicators of our growth and how we should actually view life, because as again, it's a requisite for our religion to actually think we're service of others, and we believe that Allah is the one that is going to account for us on the day of judgment, and all we can do is our best. I think that's the main crux of how we believe in things and how we should navigate life.
Yeah, and that you shouldn't lose yourself in that process of I have to compete. Just listen to your values, listen what you want to do and what you want your success to be in life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Farin, for being on the show. I think we've covered a lot of points, and I think that's something that we can perhaps discuss in the future. We will have a show on Wednesday live, and thank you for joining again, and inshallah we'll continue the discussion at some other point. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.